I'm Angela.
And I'm Paige.
Join us as we dive into our obsession with true crime, history, and mysterious stories. We'll explore the intricate details of the corrupt, the cruel, and the calculating.
We assume no responsibility or liability for any errors or omissions in the content of this episode. The Corrupt Podcast is based on the facts and our opinions of the case. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to the Corrupt Podcast.
In July 2021, Gabby Petito and her fiancé Brian Laundrie started on a cross-country trip in Gabby's converted van. They planned on becoming travel vloggers, documenting their adventures across the United States. In September, Brian was located at his parents' home in Florida, but Gabby had mysteriously disappeared.
Gabrielle Venora Petito was born on March 19, 1999. Gabby's parents, Nicole and Joe, stayed together until Gabby was 6 months old. Then they separated and remarried. Gabby's stepfather is Jim Schmidt, and her stepmother is Tara Petito. Gabby was very young with both marriages, and she was the oldest of 6 siblings and half-siblings. Gabby's first Instagram post was of the ocean at Davis Park in New York 2014. After that, she posts her life and travels throughout the years.
Gabby and Brian Laundrie met in high school. Brian graduated in 2016, and then they went separate ways. The following year, Gabby graduated from Bayport Blue Point High School. In September 2017, Gabby moved to Carolina Beach, North Carolina. She took a job as a hostess and KitchenAid. Gabby and Brian reconnected and started dating in March of 2019. By December, Gabby moved to Florida to live with Brian. They moved in with Brian's parents, Christopher and Roberta. Christopher and Roberta owned a company selling professional juicing equipment. Not long after moving in, Gabby started to feel uncomfortable and isolated while living in the home. At one point, Gabby tells her mom she thinks Roberta is jealous of her relationship with Brian.
By 2020, Brian started to manipulate and control Gabby. Before a night out with a friend, Brian hid Gabby's wallet and credit cards. Brian and Gabby had been dating for 3 months when they got engaged in July 2020. When they were hiking, Brian proposed to Gabby without a ring. However, a firefly landed on her ring finger, which they took as a good sign. Gabby didn't tell her parents, but they saw a post on Facebook from Brian's mom.
Gabby talks to her family a lot, like every day or every other day, but she doesn't tell them about her engagement. To me, this sounds like someone in her family had already expressed doubts about the relationship.
And maybe Gabby knew those doubts, otherwise she would have told her family about the engagement. Or maybe Gabby didn't take the engagement seriously either. Brian didn't have a ring. She wanted to feel more special than a firefly, you know?
Yeah, that's a possibility as well. They don't really proceed with wedding planning. It's more just of a impromptu thing. But still, it's a really big situation when you get engaged. You know, usually you tell people, you post it yourself on social media. It sounds to me like she did not do any of those things. It was Roberta who posted it on Facebook.
They also had a money problem.
Yeah, they were young and poor.
Yeah, I feel you there. Feel you.
I know. As most of us were in our early 20s, young and poor. Yeah.
Gabby purchased a 2012 Ford Transit Connect and got a job at Taco Bell to save for a 4-month cross-country road trip. Gabby's plan was to become a travel vlogger with a YouTube channel. Brian sold artwork online and worked at an organic juice bar. The manipulation ramps up in the Laundrie home before the trip. Brian texts Gabby saying that her job at Taco Bell is disgusting and that he was afraid she would leave him. Roberta, Brian's mom, was cold and upset with Gabby frequently too.
So now Gabby is dealing with a cold future mother-in-law. Brian has separated her from her family, and she's dealing with a controlling fiancé. Gabby told friends that she didn't deserve Brian, and she was hurting him with her actions. Her actions were literally going out with friends or having a job.
Her job at Taco Bell is disgusting. Listen. We all know that I love me some Taco Bell, But I think you can agree with this page. The people that work in the fast food industry probably deal with more stress and more crap than the average 9-to-5 worker. So I'm not speaking from experience, but that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I'm not in food service anymore, but I am a certified chef. And let me tell you that people suck. Food service is hard. People are rude to you. If you are a waitress, they don't tip you. They're demanding. It's a tough job. So I feel like Brian should have understood this working at an organic juice bar. It might have been a different scale of clientele, like maybe, richier people going to the juice bar versus Taco Bell. But either way, those jobs had to both stink on a customer service level.
You know what Gabby should have told Brian?
Let's have a Crunchwrap Supreme.
No. I like my cheese dripping, bruh. Peace out.
Oh my gosh.
Peace out, Brian. See you later. Your cheese ain't dripping. Okay?
And we're done here. The end. Broken up.
That's what she should have said.
Yes, absolutely. I love Taco Bell. I also love organic juice. So I right down the middle there.
Best of both worlds.
Yeah. According to Roberta, she felt that her relationship with Brian was strained at this time. So Roberta penned a letter to Brian. On the envelope, it was addressed to Brian Christopher Laundrie. Then in parentheses, it says burn after reading. Known as the burn after reading letter, it starts out as a love letter from mother to son. Then it takes a turn for the extremely creepy. Roberta says, quote,
"If you're in jail, I will bake a cake with a file in it. If you need to dispose of a body, I will show up with a shovel and garbage bags. If you fly to the moon, I will be watching the skies for your re-entry. If you say you hate my guts, I'll get new guts."
The letter is not dated, but Roberta says that it was written before Brian and Gabby leave on their trip. Most people, however, believe that she actually wrote this after his return to Florida.
And the fact that he never burnt the letter, like his mom wrote this and she says burn after reading and he didn't burn it. It's kind of a slap in the face to Roberta.
He can't follow basic directions.
Maybe he simply forgot. Like, who knows what the reason was? I bet it made her feel pretty shitty that Brian never burnt that letter, though.
Yeah, when the FBI does the first search of the house, they find this letter, and I'm sure she was sweating at that point. It's just such a strange letter. Like I said, so it starts out kind of like love letter, mother to son, which is okay. But then going into, I'll show up with a shovel and garbage bags. If you say you hate my guts, I'll get new guts. Like, it's very strange. Who writes that?
You can't even send a cake to prison.
No.
So you're wrong there, Miss Roberta.
I'm not sure how she's getting that file into him, but it's going to be more creative than a cake.
Exactly.
On Friday, July 2nd, 2021, Gabby and Brian rolled out of New York, kicking off the road trip. Gabby recorded their adventures, and Brian is so clearly uncomfortable with being recorded.
Weirdly uncomfortable.
They record again and again to perfection, and you can just see Brian simmering and getting more and more frustrated. 3 days later, on July 5th, they arrived in Monument Rocks Natural Landmarks in Kansas. From July 8th to 11th, Gabby and Brian were in Colorado Springs. Based on Gabby's socials, they spent a couple of days at Great Sand Dunes National Park and Preserve. Then, they arrived in Utah on July 16th, camping at the Zion National Park and Bryce Canyon until the 22nd. Gabby and Brian would spend over a month in Utah. August 12th is a tale of social media facade. Gabby posted photos of their trip to the Arches National Park on her Instagram account, and it looks amazing and idyllic. Gabby's more complex reality from that day was not shared on social media. A photo retrieved from Gabby's phone later would show her documenting physical abuse from Brian. In the photo, she has puffy eyes and a scratch and blood on her face. By August 12th, Gabby and Brian were 41 days into their road trip. The audio you are about to hear is from a witness named Chris, who called 911 to report a domestic abuse situation.
Hi, I'm calling. I'm right on the corner of Main Street by Moonflower, and we're driving by, and I'd like to report a domestic dispute. Florida with a white van, Florida license plate, white land, gentleman,
Where's it at?
5'6" beard. They just drove off. They're going down Main Street. They made a right onto Main Street from Moonflower
Or what were they doing?
Cooperative, but what'd you say?
What were they doing?
We drove by and the gentleman was slapping the girl.
He was slapping her?
Yes, and then we stopped. They ran up and down the sidewalk. He proceeded to hit her, hopped in the car, and they drove off.
Okay, you said it's a white van?
White van. I can give you the license plate if you give me 1 sec. I took a picture of it.
What kind of white van? Like a big one?
It was a smaller van with the license plate of, it was white, Florida license plate QFT G03. The make was a Ford, model was Transit, black ladder on the passenger side.
Black ladder, passenger side.
White Ford Transit.
White Ford Transit. Okay, what's your name?
When interviewed later, Chris would say that Brian and Gabby were arguing in front of the Moonflower Community Cooperative Natural Food Store in Moab, Utah. Brian and Gabby were running up and down the sidewalk arguing. Brian slapped Gabby and then appeared to be leaving in the van, taking Gabby's phone with him. Gabby climbed in the driver window of the van. They then drove off down Main Street. Brian was driving 45 miles per hour in a 15 miles per hour area when police pulled them over. The van also hit the curb before coming to a stop. By 4:30 p.m., officer body cameras show that Gabby and Brian being separated and interviewed. The police officer has Gabby sit in his cruiser to cool off in the air conditioning.
When asked about the altercation, Gabby says Brian locked her out of the van until she calmed down.
Brian says that he was pushing Gabby away, not hitting her. He has scratches on his face. He says she hit his face with her phone.
Which is interesting since Gabby has blood on her face and a bruise on her arm from the altercation. When asked about the van jerking and striking the curb, both Gabby and Brian deny that Gabby grabbed the steering wheel. Gabby says that she hit Brian's arm when the police siren sounded, which caused the vehicle to strike the curb. One of the officers is heard saying they think Brian is covering for Gabby. Gabby and Brian both say they had been fighting all morning. Gabby blames herself, saying that she was cleaning the van and she has an OCD. Brian was asked if Gabby took medication, and he said, quote, "She's just crazy," and laughed. Gabby cried in the backseat of the police cruiser for over an hour. She called her mom while in the backseat, telling Nicole that Brian locked her out of the van, but she brushed off the details.
In the end, law enforcement decided not to cite Brian and Gabby, but they did separate them for the night. Gabby was given the keys to the van, and an officer recommends a place for Gabby to shower for $4 or $5. Brian is set up in a hotel for the night for free. The police asked them both not to contact each other until the next morning to give themselves time to cool off.
The police officer tells Brian that his wife has severe anxiety, and sometimes having a nice long shower will help her, so that's why he recommended the shower to Gabby. The Moab Police Department received a lot of heat for the way this situation was handled. Luckily for us, we have a friend whose husband is a police sergeant. I picked his brain to see if this could have been handled differently, and the answer was pretty much no. Our police sergeant friend says that the situation would have been nearly impossible. They can cite Gabby or Brian, but once they're out of jail, they'll just go back to being together again. Until Gabby decided she was ready to move on, there really isn't much law enforcement can do. The Moab police did at least separate them for the night to cool off, and Gabby has the van, Brian's in a hotel. She absolutely could have driven home and left him, but she chooses to stay.
What is it with this Moab Police Department and cooling off? They're like telling Gabby she needs to sit in the cruiser, to cool off in the air conditioning, which is understandable. Then they're giving Brian advice, like she needs to go into a cool shower. She needs a cool shower. She'll be fine. Just like everything is cooling off for these officers.
It is August in Utah, so I'm not sure how hot it is, but I think it's pretty hot.
It was the heat talking. It was the heat
yes,
talking.
People get all angry when they overheat.
Yeah.
But maybe it's something like that.
But if you do watch the police officer's body cam, it seems like they are being awfully nice to Brian, but keep in mind, it may also be their tactic to make him feel more comfortable That way he can tell the truth because he feels like he can trust these cool cops who understand him and what he's going through.
On the flip side, though, Brian makes some kind of joke about the sun and his bald head and, hey, can I go sit under this tree? You know, I'm going to get a sunburn on the top of my head, basically. And the officers are all, standing around kind of joking with him, like, oh, I'll put my hand over top of you or my arm over top of you to shade you. So, yeah, it could be that they're trying to be friendly with him, hey, we're the good guys, let us help you. Or it could be, what I really think is that they believe that Gabby is the aggressor here.
Yeah, and the fact that Brian says, I don't know, she's crazy. The officers are going to stand there and be like, oh yeah, I know how that is.
Yeah. Well, and they just take everything at face value. Even Gabby, when she's losing her chill about cleaning the back of the van and how she has an OCD, Brian is known for not wearing shoes. So they're staying in this little converted van, and he's out walking around in the desert with no shoes on. They don't even have showers readily available. I'm skeeved out over here already. You don't even know what's on his feet. Ugh.
Maybe he really stank. And they're like, we know Gabby, we already told her to take a shower to cool off, but you need to frickin' take a shower because you rink. Take a shower. Good God.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe they're both needing showers. Maybe that's a subtle, maybe you guys should take a bath. Not sure. Maybe he needs to wash his feet.
If I was road tripping, I would at least get a van and install some sort of, shower system going on. Even if it's on the outside of it, I have to put some curtains around me, something to keep me clean.
Yes, I'm not sure how they were doing it, if Gabby was living that dry shampoo life, but in the video, her hair always looks amazing.
Long, beautiful blonde hair.
Yeah, and they're not stopping to shower frequently, or maybe they planned their trip around this, a $4 or $5 shower.
Mm-hmm.
Entirely possible. If this was me, yes, I'm with you. I'm not going 2 days without a shower, so we have to plan our trip somewhere. We're stopping at a truck stop for a shower.
Or they're washing themselves in the creek.
Her hair looks awful nice for creek washing hair. I'm not digging it, but it could do wonders for somebody.
All that fish poop.
You don't know what's in that water. Also, how cold that would be. Very refreshing, 50 degrees. I'm just going to stay in a hotel. Hotels are good. So with Gabby's case, domestic abuse victims frequently blame themselves for the abuse. While she's talking to the police, several times she blames herself, saying that she was distracting Brian while he was driving. She has an OCD, anxiety, and meanness. The police take her at face value. They don't really look into the situation. They don't ask too many questions. That's the fault that I find in this investigation or this traffic pullover. Brian was locking Gabby out of her own van and taking her phone.
She had to jump in the window to get in the van.
Right there is the root of the problem. Pump the brakes right there. It's her van. And I think that should have maybe been investigated a little bit more than it was. Also, can we talk about that dispatcher? How infuriating he was. Chris is on the phone trying to give details, and every time he gives something that's relevant, the dispatcher almost barks at him and makes him repeat it. Ugh.
Yeah, he was kind of forceful with the description of the van, and he repeated him even.
Oh, there's a ladder on it. And then Chris keeps going on, he's literally got the license plate number and everything, but she won't let him talk to hear the license plate number.
Mm-hmm. What ladder is it even?
Yeah, I'm not sure why they have a ladder on their vehicle.
Is it one of those little mini ones? I'm not going to boast myself here, but the 4Runners, because I am a 4Runner owner. Thank you very much. They have those huge ladders, because it's off-road. It's out in the terrain and going, they're just going through the mountains and stuff. That's what a 4Runner does, off-road 4Runner. And
what do you need the ladder for, though?
Well, sometimes they climb up. They climb up on the roof. People install tents on the roof rack, so they climb up the ladder on the roof and sleep on the roof of a 4Runner. But I didn't know if because they had a van and because they didn't have the roof rack, maybe it was just some people put like tiny mini ones on to like kind of make fun of, or like just a little giggle or a laugh that people will see like, oh, it's a mini ladder.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure. Even in the drone video of the van, I don't really pick up the ladder.
I don't see it either.
So I'm not sure.
That evening, Gabby called her mom from the van. Nicole tried to convince Gabby to just come home. Nicole points out how strange it was that Gabby was alone in a van, but they set Brian up in a hotel.
A week later, Brian flew home to empty out a storage unit and save money for the possibility of extending their road trip. Gabby stayed at a hotel in Utah working on her blog and YouTube video. She started her YouTube channel, Nomadic Static, and posted her van life video during that time. The 8-minute video summarized their trip so far. This would be her only video to be shared on YouTube. Currently, the video has over 10 million views. Gabby's parents have requested to keep her Instagram and YouTube pages active. We'll share the links to both in our episode notes.
On August 22nd, Gabby sent a text message to her ex-boyfriend, Jackson, saying that she would really love to talk to him and that she was only alone until the next day. Jackson and Gabby spoke on the phone. According to Jackson, Gabby told him that she had a plan to leave Brian, but didn't elaborate on the plan. Gabby FaceTimed her parents when she was checking out of the hotel on Tuesday, August 24th. They were leaving Utah and headed towards Wyoming. The following day, Gabby called her parents from Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming. Gabby posted her final photo on Instagram.
Gabby and Brian arrived at Jackson Hole on August 27th.
Wait, that's weird. Her ex-boyfriend was Jackson, and they went to Jackson Hole?
Yep. And also the area of Jackson Hole is like the valley, and then Jackson is one of the cities inside. So there's just an awful lot of the word Jackson.
Well,
in this case.
Most of the time, Brian was driving the van. Was he trying to... I feel like that was kind of like, I don't know. My mind is racing right now. I'm going through all these thoughts. Maybe that was part of his plan to like nudge her in a way or manipulate her in another way. Let's travel over here to Jackson Hole to kind of get it through her head that, guess what? You ain't leaving me.
I know.
I don't know. It's weird. It's just a thought.
I think that the trip had been planned for a long time. Like they had already known where they were going.
Damn it. I liked mine better.
Sorry.
That's okay.
At 1 p.m., Brian and Gabby were having lunch at the Merry Piglets, a Tex-Mex restaurant in Jackson. Gabby went straight to the bathroom sick. She thought from the smell of the chicken. Gabby texts Brian saying that she doesn't want to pay for food that she can't eat. According to an interview with ABC News, Nina Angelo, another customer at Merry Piglets, said that Gabby and Brian had an argument with the restaurant staff about the bill. Brian went in and out of the restaurant several times. Nina says that Gabby stood on the sidewalk crying as Brian went back into the restaurant screaming at the staff. I also heard that Gabby ends up going back in to deal with the staff while Brian stays outside of the restaurant. I'm not sure if this means that she paid for the bill or not. At 1:45 p.m., Gabby calls her ex-boyfriend Jackson, but he was at work and couldn't answer the phone. Surveillance video then shows Gabby and Brian arriving at Whole Foods at 2:11 p.m. Brian pulls into the parking spot, climbs out, and slams the driver door. Susan Constantine, a body language expert, analyzed Brian and Gabby's body language from the surveillance footage. In the video, Gabby walks into the door of Whole Foods with her arms crossed, head bent down, and a step behind Brian. According to Susan, this meant that Gabby was feeling very small. Gabby and Brian don't appear to look at each other while heading into the store, during shopping, or on the way back to the van. Gabby also keeps her bags in between her body and Brian's, which is another way of separating herself and making sure that he can't touch her as easily.
And that footage of when they left the van heading into the Whole Foods store, he seemed pissed. He slammed that door. Something was going down.
He did, and from the time that they pull into the parking spot at 2:11, it's actually 2:13 p.m., so 2 minutes pass before they both get out of the van. So I'm not sure if they were sitting in the van and arguing, but 2 minutes felt like a really long time to sit in the van or maybe just because it was on surveillance video, it felt like a long time. But they end up getting out of the van. Brian gets in the back and he grabs bags and things like that out. So it's not like they were even like wrangling their bags in that 2 minutes. They're actually just sitting there in the van.
Yeah, they're chit-chatting or arguing about something.
The surveillance video showing Gabby and Brian shopping would be the last known footage of Gabby.
We know that Gabby and Brian were parked at the Spread Creek campsite by 6 to 6:30 p.m. Gabby texts Nicole at 7:15 p.m. saying,
"He said I could have the van if I paid him."
Nicole responds by asking if they were breaking up. Gabby says,
"No, I just said I could make more money as a solo female van lifer."
Brian camped out in the woods and Gabby stayed in the van at the campsite by herself. At 8:32 p.m., Gabby was moving video computer files around on her hard drive. This is the last movement on any of her devices. Brian took photos on his phone of skulls and flowers while out camping and hiking on his own on August 28th. Police speculate that Gabby died the same day. Brian moved and staged her body.
Brian calls Roberta and has a 55-minute phone call with her at 1:20 p.m. on August 29th. Chris's phone activity shows him contacting a Wyoming attorney and paying a $25,000 retainer fee days later. The Laundries continue having phone calls back and forth until 3:30 p.m. At the same time, Brian is also sending texts to Gabby's phone, letting her know that he made it to Coulter Bay. Brian was picked up as a hitchhiker by Miranda Baker from Coulter Bay Village at 5:55 p.m. They take him to Jackson Lake Dam. Around 6:30 to 6:45 p.m., Brian is continuing to hitchhike and is picked up by Norma Jean. He asked to be taken to Jackson, but Norma said she's heading north and she dropped him off at the gate of Spread Creek camping area.
Brian keeps texting Gabby, but the texts go unread on Gabby's phone until he makes it back to the Spread Creek area. These texts from Brian's phone read,
"Hey honey, just calling to let you know I made it to Coulter Bay. I think the campground is still a little ways up the road. I'm gonna go check it out. Let me know when you're on your way, no rush. Can't wait for you to see the mountains across the water."
At that point, investigators say he was holding both phones and texting himself as the red status was almost instant. Gabby's phone responded.
"Yeah, sure, baby."
Gabby's phone texted Brian.
"We'll do one more night of Dispersed. Then we've got our site at Coulter Bay for 2 nights.
On August 30th, Nicole received a text from Gabby's phone. "Can you help Stan? I just keep getting his voicemail and missed calls. My phone doesn't even ring. There is no service." Nicole thought it was strange for Gabby to call him Stan instead of Grandpa, but Nicole thought Gabby must have been driving, and Brian was the one sending the texts.
Nicole texted Gabby to check in, but didn't hear back on September 1st. Gabby's phone turns off and is never turned back on. Unknown to anyone else, Brian arrived back at his parents' Florida home with Gabby's van. Nicole texted Gabby again the next day to see if they were headed to Montana, but still didn't hear back. Nicole noticed there were no new Instagram posts since August 25th. That was the last time Nicole had FaceTimed Gabby. By September 7th, Nicole's texts were starting to get more frantic.
"Hi, I know you might not have good signal, but I'm actually getting worried. I haven't heard from you in a while."
We're now over 10 days since she last heard from Gabby. Nicole texted Joe, and they both had not heard from her. They started calling Gabby repeatedly and contacting her friends. Jackson received a call from Nicole, and he starts texting Gabby as well.
Nicole texts Roberta to see if she had heard from Brian or Gabby on September 10th. That text was delivered, but Roberta did not respond. Nicole sends another text message to Roberta, but this text is not delivered, like Roberta had turned off the phone or blocked Nicole. Joe also reached out to Brian's parents and sister. No one responded to him. Gabby's family took to social media to ask if anyone had seen Gabby. On September 11th, Joe and Nicole tried to contact national parks on the West Coast, trying to report Gabby and Brian missing. They were told that a report would need to be opened where Gabby was living, which would have been Florida.
A Northport, Florida Police Department is made. The search for Brian comes to an end quickly on September 11th, when he was found at his parents' home. On the evening of September 11th, the police do a welfare check. Chris and Roberta meet the police officer at the front door and say, well, Brian is here, and provide their attorney's phone number to the officer. They won't provide any additional information or let the officer speak with Brian. There sat Gabby's van in the driveway. When the officer asks if it's Gabby's van, Chris responds that it is Gabby and Brian's van. The police officer ran the plates before he left and confirmed that the van is titled to Gabby. After talking to the New York detectives, the Florida officer agrees to attempt talking to the Laundries again. He knocks on the door a second time and asks for Brian's parents to provide some information. They won't let the police talk to Brian, and they just keep telling the officer to call their attorney, even though it's 10 or 11 p.m. The officer gets annoyed and tells Brian's parents that the van is titled to just Gabby and they'll be towing it. At this point, Gabby's family is advised that Brian and the van had been found, but Gabby was not.
That had to have been heartbreaking for them.
Terrifying. Yeah.
Kudos to that officer, too. Running the plates and be like, nope, this is Gabby's van, I'm taking it. Too bad, so sad. You don't want to talk to me? Fine. You don't want to give me more information? Fine.
Yeah, and I think that has a lot to do with the New York detectives pushing him, because he does try to say, oh, nope, this isn't my problem. Nothing I can do here. You know, she's an adult. She walked away situation. And the New York police officer really put their foot down and said, no, this is all the makings of something not right going on. And that's what kind of pushes him into going back the second time. And then I think at that point, he gets a little ticked off at the Laundries.
Annoyed for sure.
Yeah. At this point, the case literally explodes. I remember this happening in 2021. It was everywhere and unraveling in real time. Missing posters were all over social media, and people were throwing accusations at the Laundries. Protesters were staking out their front yard. Suddenly, everyone was an internet detective, and they were going to be the one to find Gabby.
Yeah, I specifically remember watching the police cam footage first. I knew on social media it was showing that she was missing. And then when I Googled it or YouTubed it, I went to the footage right away. And I immediately was like, this is insane. This is not right. Like, she's clearly uncomfortable. She's clearly crying. Like, something's wrong.
Yeah, the situation definitely ramped up when that officer body camera came out. And you could see her just melting and in distress. And then Brian's reaction to it all.
There should be a mandatory amount of time that you should stay away from the other person for like 5 days, minimum 5 days. Just be away from them, clear your head, do whatever. Like, it shouldn't just be 24 hours. That is no way enough time.
I agree with that. But on the flip side, it's not law enforcement's responsibility to babysit them either. You know, they're both adults. Definitely needs to look into the signs that she's being abused. I think that was clearly missed. But, you know, you've got the checks and balances of law enforcement and our government. Should they have the power to keep us away from somebody for 5 days?
I don't think they necessarily...
Like, what if somebody abuses that?
Yeah, that's where I don't think they should babysit them. I think they should, like, put a direct order to them. Like, hey, you guys need to stay away from each other for 5 days. If you don't, and we find out that you're somehow together within that 5-day period, guess what? You guys are going to jail.
Ooh, there's going to be a smackdown.
And you guys are also getting a freaking shower.
Maybe some counseling or therapy as well. Let's just throw that in.
Yeah. The secretary is a pretty good therapist at the precinct. So you guys will be...
Oh, boy.
Top notch. And when I say you guys, I don't mean specifically Gabby and Brian. I'm just talking about, like, overall domestic violence abuse towards one another, those kinds of partners in general. This is what they should do for them.
Yeah, there definitely needed to be something else done or handled differently.
What we find out later is that Brian and his family took a camping trip from September 6th to the 8th before Gabby is even reported missing. Roberta, Chris, and Brian stay quiet at this time. Brian's sister, Cassie, doesn't stay quiet. She talks to the media, saying she is not hearing anything from her parents or brother. On September 13th, Jim flies to Wyoming and is interviewed by the news. The FBI also became involved in the investigation. Gabby's digital footprint helped investigators narrow down the general time and area where she last used her phone, which was the Spread Creek campground. Based on this information, the Teton County Search and Rescue got involved. The area to search is over 300,000 acres of rough terrain with mountains, plains, and lakes. Search teams were looking for Gabby by air, drones, horses, and side-by-sides, and on foot. As the search for Gabby continues, Brian is named a person of interest, but based on his attorney's advice, he did not speak with law enforcement.
On September 14th, the Laundrie's Ford Mustang was suspiciously found in a parking lot outside of the Myakkahatchee Creek Environmental Park. The Laundries picked up the car and brought it back home. Brian told his parents that he was going for a hike to let off some steam, but they didn't report that Brian wasn't in the house to police. They simply picked up the car and brought it back home.
This does not make sense to me at all. So he takes this Ford Mustang, drives to this place, goes hiking, and
Correct.
It's suspiciously still there for a day.
It would have been 3 days later.
And his parents they're like, oh yeah, that's our car. And they come rolling in and they drive the car back home. No questions are asked. They don't even think that he's maybe in the hiking area. They're just like, oh, he's probably in there somewhere just camping out. Like, what were their thoughts? You're just going to leave your son out there? It's been 3 days. You're not concerned?
Right. And now they have the car. So he comes back out from his hike, quote unquote hike. Well, how's he getting home?
Yeah.
The car had been tagged as like an abandoned vehicle at the park. And that's how they got notified and went to pick it up, because it had been there for a couple of days and the tow company was like, hey, come get this or we're going to tow it, kind of a situation. The whole thing with the Laundries, Chris and Roberta, it does not make sense what they do. Their actions throughout this whole case just don't line up.
Mm-hmm.
Roberta and Chris would finally report Brian missing to police on September 17th. The family hadn't seen Brian since Tuesday the 14th. Somehow, Brian had snuck out of the house undetected by the surveillance teams. There were surveillance cameras in the Laundrie's backyard, one down the street and one in the neighbor's garden. Apparently, the officer on duty had thought Brian was Roberta, leaving the house, and suddenly both Gabby and Brian were missing again.
The FBI received 200 to 300 tips per day on both disappearances. One of those tips was a family traveling in their bus and vlogging about it. The Bethune family used to call their YouTube channel Red, White, and Bethune, but now it's just Being Bethunes. The family was looking for a place to stay on August 27th, and they ended up at Spread Creek. Being vloggers, they had a dash camera recording their drive. Later, they were editing the video and found Gabby's van in their footage. As they are driving up this gravel road, there is Gabby's van parked on the left side. They posted the video to their YouTube channel and notified the FBI. The FBI and search parties used this information to narrow down the search area for Gabby. Gabby's remains were located on September 19th by the search team. Her body would be found near a stream. She was laying on her side and wrapped in a sweater. Her boots were off and lying next to her body. Investigators immediately noted that Gabby's body looked staged. An autopsy found that she had died from manual strangulation and blunt force trauma to her head and neck.
Across the United States and Florida, the search continued for Brian. The 20,000 acres in the Myakkahatchee Creek Environmental Park would need to be searched. Hurricane Nicholas had hammered Texas in mid-September, which created weeks of rain during this time. The park was closed due to the amount of rain. The search teams were literally wading through alligator-infested, waist-deep water, and the search for Brian would cost $200,000 per day.
Hail to the no. Those infested alligator water. No. Nope.
Waist-deep alligator-infested water. There is no way.
I wouldn't even go toe deep.
It's 20,000 acres, yeah.
Hell no.
It was so alligator infested that they had to call off the search dogs because they were being attacked by gators. It's horrible.
Yeah, they better have. Those poor dogs.
The poor search team, too.
The dogs are what matter here.
Justice for the police search dogs.
Exactly. I'm here for them.
A federal arrest warrant was issued for Brian on September 23rd, charging him with debit card fraud. Brian used Gabby's debit card for gas on the way back to Florida. There was also a Zelle transaction for $700 saying, "Goodbye, Brian. I'll never ask you for anything again," as if Gabby was paying Brian for the van and going off as a solo van lifer. The thing that I picked up here that I thought was really weird was that the Zelle transaction saying, "Goodbye, Brian. I'll never ask you anything again," implies that she's paying him and keeping the van, but he's driving back in the van.
Yeah. Doesn't make sense.
It makes zero sense that he should have just transferred $700 to himself without a description.
Yeah. Or just kept hitchhiking without the van. Or there's just
Bingo.
things that
He should have abandoned the van there.
I don't even want to give anybody ideas. It sounds like we're helping. Like, oh, if you want to get away with a murder, do this instead. No, we're not saying that. Don't freaking murder anybody.
Step 1, don't murder anyone. Just walk away and break up.
Walk away, break up, cool off, take a damn shower.
Oh, I've got hashtags, take a shower. Dog the Bounty Hunter joined the hunt for Brian. He went to the Laundrie house, knocked on the door, but the family didn't answer. Dog did search the swamp for Brian. He reported back saying the area was full of gator and snake-infested waters. Dog wouldn't be the one to find Brian, but apparently he has captured over 10,000 other fugitives.
Okay, so now it's and snake-infested waters. Yeah. First I said hell no. Now I'm going to say hell to the mother and no. I bleeped that out for you guys, okay, because I don't want to go to jail.
Keeping this PG-13. It's still R-rated. This is still explicit. So.
TV 14. That's what it's rated. No, I used to binge watch Dog the Bounty Hunter. Have you ever watched him? He's great.
I have seen it. I would not classify him as great, but I know lots of people do like him.
You like long, luscious hair. He's got long, luscious hair.
Ugh, no, he's so tan.
He's very greasy. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I found him very entertaining. It was in the middle of the night. I would be feeding my daughter on the recliner, saying goodbye to my husband. Yes, he would go to work probably 2 or 3 a.m. And I would just click this on and Dog the Bounty Hunter would show up. And man, it was so entertaining for me. And I was like, I am so into this. I am so glad that he's catching these fugitives and putting them where they belong.
I am a little concerned for your daughter being that young.
Oh, she's sleepy.
And listening to Dog the Bounty Hunter.
She's sleepy. She don't care.
I can't say anything. I was raised on unsolved mysteries like every day after school. Like sit down and have a snack and just binge unsolved mysteries. And look at what this has got me. So
this is why we're here. That has your experience and this is my experience. You know, like I just want to get that mother, you know, I just want to get him. And you're like, yeah, I want to get to the nitty gritty part. Let's get the background of this. Let's get the reason why they are corrupted.
The psychology involved. Yeah, exactly. We'll make a good team.
We're good partners. I wonder if his show is still on, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what he does anymore.
The park had been closed due to the flooding, and it reopened to the public on October 20th. Brian's parents finally went to the park to look for him themselves. Chris and Roberta arrived at 7 a.m., and within an hour, they located a waterproof bag that belonged to Brian. Then 45 minutes later, Brian's body would be discovered.
Law enforcement searched for 37 days, but then his parents finally joined the search and his body is found within 2 hours. I think his parents knew a general idea of where he would be the whole time. They just were not letting law enforcement know. They might not have known he was dead. I think they knew his whereabouts and just didn't tell anyone.
Brian's body was decomposed down to the bones. Brian's clothes and shoes were still there. His cause of death was suicide by gunshot wound to the head. The waterproof bag contained photos of Brian and Gabby and letters on a waterproof notebook. In his letters to family, Brian said that he loved them and goodbye. There was also a letter detailing Brian's story about Gabby's death.
ABC News transcribed Brian's letter to Gabby. We're going to read some of the letter, but you can find the full 8-page letter online. He said, "Gabby, I wish I was right at your side. I wish I could be talking to you right now. I'd be going through every memory we made, getting even more excited for the future. But we've lost our future. I can't live without you. I've lost every day we could have spent together. Rushing back to our car to cross the streams of..."
Illegible. We're assuming it was supposed to say cross a stream.
"Before it got too dark to see, too cold. I hear a splash and a scream. I could hardly see. I couldn't find her for a moment, shouted her name. I found her breathing, gasping my..."
Then there are 2 lines that are too smudged to read.
"The blazing hot national parks in Utah. The temperatures had dropped to freezing and she was soaking wet. I carried her as far as I could down the stream towards the car, stumbling, exhausted, in shock, and I knew I couldn't safely carry her. I started a fire and spooned her as close to the heat. She was so thin, had already been freezing too long. I couldn't at the time realize that I should have started the fire first, but I wanted her out of the cold back to the car. From where I started the fire, I had no idea how far the car might be, only knew it was across the creek. When I pulled Gabby out of the water, she couldn't tell me what hurt. She had a small lump on her forehead that eventually got larger. Her feet hurt, her wrist hurt, but she was freezing, shaking violently. While carrying her, she continually made sounds of pain. Lying next to her, she said little, lapsing between violent shakes, gasping in pain, begging for an end to her pain. She would fall asleep, and I would shake her awake, fearing she shouldn't close her eyes if she had a concussion. She would wake in pain, start the whole painful cycle again, while furious that I was the one waking her. She wouldn't let me try to cross the creek, thought like me the fire would go out in her sleep and she'd freeze. I don't know the extent of Gabby's injuries, only that she was in extreme pain. I ended her life. I thought it was merciful, that it was what she wanted, but I see now all the mistakes I made. I was in shock, but from the moment I decided, took her pain away, I couldn't go on without her."
Brian ends the letter by asking them to please pick up all of his things because Gabby hated people who littered.
This letter is so infuriating, it just makes me want to scream.
Yeah.
It's bullshit from start to end. He is lying through his teeth about the whole situation. He says that they are, they crossed the creek. He makes it sound like they're in the wilderness for 6 days. He doesn't know which way to go. But in actuality, they're not that far from the car.
Yeah.
Did you lose your cell phone? Did she lose her cell phone? Why did you not call someone for help?
That's true.
And the fact when he talks about that he couldn't carry her, he could have drug her, if nothing else. We don't know Gabby's weight, but we know that she was 5'5" and tiny. Looking at her pictures, she's 120 pounds? Brian was 160 pounds and 5'8". Like, come on.
When he stated in his letter, she wouldn't let me try to cross the creek, thought like me that the fire would go out in her sleep and she'd freeze. So how did she stop him from crossing the creek? Was she pulling him? Was she yanking him? Was she just keeping him there? Was she talking to him? Because guess what?
No, she's just gasping for breath.
Yeah.
She
had enough energy to stop you from crossing the damn creek. So why couldn't she tell you what went wrong or what happened? And the trauma for the autopsy, the trauma was to the head and to the neck. What the heck
Correct.
would she have done? Slipped on a rock and fell?
He makes it sound like she fell off of a cliff.
Into the creek, right. But where, if you see that area that she was found at,
it's flat.
Is so flat. There's not one freaking mountain around. I didn't see nothing but flat.
Yeah, and the creek is like ankle deep. Unless it was, torrential downpours while they were there, entirely possible. But he makes it sound like this is, chest high water that he would have to wade through. And later when I'm watching Gabby's family go out there, it's like ankle deep water. Yeah. This is not a river.
No. That's That's the kind of water that you find freaking little tadpoles in. You don't find the full-grown fish because the creek is so shallow. So I asked my ex-Amish husband about this letter. I read it to him, and I was I was picking his brain about it and being like, what do you think? Like, from an outside point of view. His response was, now I'm going to be thinking about that all day. Why'd you tell me this? Like, I don't want to think of that. But I asked him straight up, I'm like, do you think this holds any truth? Do you think this actually happened? And he's like, yes and no. He was on the teeter-totter of just like kind of in the middle. But then because he didn't remember anything about this story. Because I had asked him if he remembered back in 2021 about anything with the body cam footage, anything like that. And he said no. So when I explained to him what happened in the body cam footage of the police officers, he was like, okay, yeah, that seems more likable that he did it on purpose. So then he started leaning towards that way. But I just wanted to kind of get his perspective on it because I almost knew he wouldn't have heard this story because he doesn't like true crime. He's an innocent, pure rose like I am, but I'm obviously not that innocent. Yeah, but okay, let's just...
You're corrupted now.
I'm corrupted. And it was interesting to hear his take on it.
It's definitely interesting to hear his unbiased opinion of it. So I do worry that we get a little too skewed in it, that it's, we remember it happening, remember it being everywhere. I remember the outrage at Moab Police Department and the outrage at the Laundries. And still, people are still outraged at the Laundries. They're not through it yet, nor should they be. So it is interesting to hear his perspective that's maybe not as skewed as our perspective would be.
And if people think that he was Amish at this point, he was not. He was like fully English. He had access to the media, social media, all of that, and he still just didn't see it. He's a workaholic. That's probably why he didn't see it.
No, he lives under a rock. Even workaholics saw this situation go down. The only conclusion here is he just lives under a rock.
He just shoves it out of his mind. If he sees something, he's like, I don't need to read that. That's negativity in my life.
As opposed to me that I'm like, ooh, must click on that. Let's watch all of that.
Like we're like digging into things. Like we have to, right?
Yes.
It's like, what was the full story? What happened here? That just helps us in general. He's more of out of sight, out of mind. Don't give me negative thoughts, then I won't think of these negative thoughts. Then I can have a happier life, more positive life.
He's got a good perspective on that.
I guess so.
We should all be more like that as we dive into the corrupted minds here.
Gabby's parents, siblings, and friends flew to Jackson, Wyoming in October 2022. They spread Gabby's ashes around the national park. They also take a group photo with a huge orb in the middle that they feel is Gabby.
And I'm sure you've seen this before where it's supposed to be like a spirit or a ghost is there and there's that huge like orb in a picture that's taken.
I don't think I've ever seen a bigger orb in a picture.
It was huge.
I've seen orbs before, and that was the biggest orb I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was and it's right in the middle of them as well. In November 2022, Gabby's parents won a $3 million wrongful death lawsuit against Brian's estate. They followed this by filing a civil lawsuit against Brian's parents. The lawsuit was for intentional and reckless infliction of emotional distress. Joe and Nicole alleged that the Laundries knew Gabby had been murdered, but withheld the information. In his October 2023 deposition, Christopher was asked about the August 29, 2021 phone call with Brian. Christopher said,
he was not calm, and he got very excited and told me things had, Gabby's gone, and he got very frantic.
Christopher goes on to say that Brian told him he might need a lawyer, so Christopher told Brian he would call an attorney that they knew for him. Christopher said he had no idea what Brian meant by Gabby's gone, but he didn't think that it meant Gabby was dead. Hold the phone here. If someone calls you in a panic and says, "Hey, my girlfriend is gone, my spouse is gone," what would you think?
Chris should have been like, "What did you do, son? What do you mean she's gone? Give me more details. More questions. What's going on here?"
Yeah, I can't think of a single situation where somebody calls me and says, "Hey, so-and-so's gone." I'm going to be like, gone like they left you, they walked out the front door, or gone like they're dead.
Yeah.
Gabby's family did reach a confidential settlement with Brian's parents in 2024. Utah passed Senate Bill 117 in 2023 with the help of Gabby's parents. This law requires law enforcement to ask 11 questions that determine whether someone in a domestic violence situation is at risk of being murdered. This law would be adopted in Florida as well. In 2025, Netflix released American Murder, Gabby Petito. The show is a limited 3-episode series.
The Laundries say that it was very one-sided, favoring Gabby. The family asked for privacy because both sides had lost a child. The Laundries continued by saying that information and the timeline was incorrect on the Netflix show. Well, if the Laundries feel obligated to even share their correct timeline, then please release it.
We are all ears. We are ready for it.
In an interview about the upcoming Netflix documentary, Nicole was asked what she would want people to know about Gabby. Nicole said,
"Take Gabby's light, the Gabby that you see laughing and dancing and fearless, and take that as inspiration on how to live your life. There is a quote I love that says, 'Be the things you loved most about the people who are gone.'"
That's beautiful right there. I'm going to keep that near and dear to my heart.
Yep.
Joe and Tara Petito moved to Florida. They opened a safe space shelter in Vero Beach in Gabby's memory.
Gabby is described as a free spirit that loved butterflies and the Beatles song Let It Be. She loved art and traveling. Gabby's family created the Gabby Petito Foundation to not only bring help to domestic violence situations, but also to locate missing people. You can find the foundation at gabbypetitofoundation.org. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have experienced some form of intimate partner violence in their lifetime. The National Domestic Violence Hotline offers free confidential support. Call 1-800-799-SAFE or 7233. You can also text START to 88788 or chat live at thehotline.org. We'll list the Gabby Petito Foundation, National Domestic Violence Hotline, and the Safe Space links in our episode notes and on our socials. We would love for you to become part of the Corrupt crew. You can find us on Patreon with multiple tiers and PayPal. This will score you our appreciation and will announce your name in a future episode. Both links are in the episode notes. Case suggestions and feedback can be emailed to us at corruptpod@gmail.com.
The sources for this episode would be listed in the episode notes. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads. Don't forget to subscribe to catch our new Corrupt content. Please also leave us a review wherever you're listening to this episode. Bye!
Bye!